Hey cycling community, this is Steve Russos. I'm starting a new short series called How the Greek Does It. Today's episode is on the bike nutrition. So on the bike nutrition actually starts before you get on the bike. What I do is I try not to eat anything within 3 hours of when I first sit on that saddle. Reason being is that can lead to stomach distress, especially if I'm, let's say, eating a big meal an hour before I go out. If I'm doing something easy endurance, I still may feel it, but if I'm doing anything more than that, the likelihood is that my stomach's going to feel it, and then I'm not going to be able to do what I really wanted to do. So when I am at work and then going to go ride afterwards with a group ride on Tuesdays or Thursdays, then I'll make sure that I take my last bite 3 hours before I get on that bike. If it's early in the morning, then if I know I'm going to be out the door within 30 minutes, then I actually won't eat anything. Relying on what I have, my glycogen stores should be full if I did everything right the night before by having an appropriate meal. And then I'm good to go. If I'm going to be, let's say, 60 or 90 minutes before I get on the bike, after I get up in the morning, then I may have a banana soon after I get up, just so I have that extra glucose there. The glycogen that's in my muscle cells will last, depending on how in shape I am, anywhere between, let's say, a very low of 40 minutes if I'm not in shape, to 90 minutes if I'm in very, very good shape. The glycogen that's in the muscle cells is only used for that muscle cell, as opposed to the glycogen in your liver, which is used for your blood sugar maintenance. Since the brain can only consume glucose that's coming from the blood system, and so if your circulatory system gets low on glucose, then it sends a signal out, and more glycogen is taken from the liver and converted into blood sugar, glucose. So that's why when I first get on the bike, then I start consuming calories. 15 minutes to 30 minutes, usually 15 minutes into the ride, on the bike nutrition. Depending on what you read, when you're on the bike, you will be burning, say, 500 or 600 calories an hour minimum. Considerably more if you're doing consistently heavy stuff. Your body can only assimilate so much each hour, and in terms of glucose, from what I've read, it can assimilate, depending on how big or small you are, somewhere between, let's say 240 to 280 calories an hour. So you can never replace immediately what you consume, and for many of us that's a good thing. So what do? I do not eat any solid food on the ride. Reason being is that for me can lead to stomach distress. Other people can do better with it, and they're fine with it. And of course, depending what you eat. But for me, I stick with liquids and gels, and that seems to do quite well for me. I do that for Climb to Kaiser or the Bass Lake Double, and I was just fine with that. In fact, that's preferable for me. So, what do I consume when? Over here, I usually consume for rides that are 2 hours or less HEED. Now HEED and all these products here that you see are Hammer Nutrition products, and I am sponsored by Hammer Nutrition. So HEED is primarily glucose polymers. It's a long chain glucose molecule that's called maltodextrin. You don't need to have any protein, you certainly don't need to have any fats when it's less than 2 hours, and so this works well for me. Each scoop is like 100 calories, and usually for rides that are 2 hours or less, because of glycogen stores, I don't need to have a lot of calories in the bottle, but I'll put anywhere between 1.5 to 2 scoops in there. When I'm racing and doing crits, and those will be like 45 minutes, those I'll usually have, again, about 1.5 scoops in there, and that does me just fine. And keeping in mind with crits, I'm usually warming up ahead of time about 40 minutes or so, if I have sufficient time to warm up. For rides that are longer 2 hours, especially when they get to 4 hours and above, And Hammer Nutrition recommends that if it's over 2 hours and I think below 8 hours, then it is sustained energy. Sustained energy, yeah, I used to take that by itself, but since a teammate of mine, Jody Cummings, told me what he was doing a while back, that seemed to work quite well for me after I tried it. So what I would do is I have a mixture of sustained energy and heat, mainly for the taste. So the difference between sustained energy and heat is soy protein isolate. So when you are doing a longer, more endurance-based riding, then after your glycogen's gone and you're burning your fats, at a certain point, the protein in your body will start to get catabolized, if I'm broken down, so it can combine with fat in your liver and be converted to glucose. So it can create blood sugar. So the concept is with the soy protein isolate in sustained energy is that you are giving your body a ready supply of amino acids, so it doesn't have to go into your muscles and catabolize those. But let's say 12 to 15% of sustained energy, each scoop is soy protein isolate. What I do is, you see this right here, this is my goodie bag. It almost looks like a kilo bag. And so this is where I put my mixture of sustained energy and heat. And at the water stops, I put in so much within each water bottle, and then off I go. Other times, I will carry along Hammer. It's almost like heat, but without any water. They may have some other things in there too. I fill one of these little containers up. You put your fingers around there, right, and just slime it on down. And this carries about 500 to 600 calories of Hammer gel. And so when I was doing Climb to Kaiser and Basque Leg Double, what I would do is, especially for Climb to Kaiser, which was during the hotter part of the year, I would put in about 150 calories, only 150 calories per bottle, because I was drinking a lot more. And so that would come close to being 250 calories per hour. And eventually I started just going with heat because of the, doing this for 10 hours, my stomach was starting to wear on that with sustained energy. And so actually what I was doing, I started off with a combination, and after water stops, I would take mostly heat. And then I would have one or two of these flasks of gel with me, Hammer gel, and fill in when I needed to with more calories. For the Basque Leg Double, which was in the cooler part of the year, October, I would take in a little more heat into my water bottle, and that Hammer gel was always a good backup for me. I also have up here Endurolites. This is electrolytes, and depending on the time of the year when I'm taking these, I'll either do like one an hour, or I will during, let's say, going up Climb to Kaiser training for Climb to Kaiser during those hotter months, I would do one every 15 minutes or so. I also take a lot of other pills at the time that I will be talking about in another episode. At the end of the ride, then it's Recoverite. Recoverite is 3 parts maltodextrin, the long chain glucose molecules, and 1 part whey protein. So not soy protein in this case. So the reason why there is soy protein and not whey protein in sustained energy is because, if I remember this right, I think it's the glutamine breaks down and releases nitrogen that can promote fatigue in the body, so that's why they don't use any whey protein during or before the ride. While whey protein after the ride, whey is quickly assimilatable. Pretty much the first thing I do after I walk in with the bike into the front door or through the garage is go for the Recoverite, so I can start the rebuilding process right away, because the quality of my bike ride started at the end of the last bike ride. Got to do all the right stuff. So this is how the Greek does it. There's other ways to do it. There's people that choose to go chocolate milk for their recovery drink. There's people that tend to use other products for their on-the-bike nutrition. A lot of those other products have fructose in it, but I tend to stay away from those primarily because fructose, I don't do well with fructose, so I'll start to get a little bit of stomach distress. Bottom line is, experiment, and don't experiment on the day of your key event. If you're doing the Climb to Kaiser, you certainly don't want to experiment with something new there. You want to experiment with something well ahead of time. I have my clients that I have that do the Climb to Kaiser, I have them experiment ahead of time, especially those that are somewhat new to cycling. I encourage you to try Hammer Nutrition because this is, they put out quality products and it's done me good. If you like this and want to see some more of this type of thing, comment below, hit like, go to the Cycling Greek and subscribe. Until next time, Yasus.